Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for the most recent announcement from the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund. I'm Angie Petretta, and I'm the Director for the OSIF portfolio, and I've actually been heavily involved in the fund manager RFP process since it was initially launched over a year ago. And so it is my absolute pleasure to be part of this exciting announcement. And not only am I excited about this most recent OSIF investment, I am also excited because it's the first time in 2 years that we've had the opportunity to do this in person. So thank you all so much for being here. Before we get started, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. The nations of the Treaty 7 region are the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, who together form the Blackfoot Confederacy. The Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wellesley First Nations, who all together form the Stoney Nakoda First Nations and the Tsuut'ina First Nation. The City of Calgary is also homeland to the historic Northwest Métis and to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. We acknowledge all Indigenous urban Calgarians who have made Calgary their home. We are joined today by 5 guest speakers who are all very well known in the startup community and beyond. Mark Blackwell, Board Chair of the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund, James Lockery, Managing Partner of Thin Air Labs, Mayor Jyoti Gondak, Dr. Brienne Everett, CEO and co-founder of Orpix Medical Technologies, and Alex Todorovich, co-founder and CEO of Arbor. I would like to call on Mark now to say a few words about the focus OSIF has put on investments in the early startup community.
Thanks so much, Angie. And on behalf of the entire OSIF Board of Directors and OSIF team, I want to thank everyone for being here live today in 3D. Just over 2 years ago, actually in April 2020, we went back to City Council with the amazing support of Mayor Gondak, requesting an amendment to our terms of reference at OSIF that would allow us to broaden the scope of our support in the community. Like many organizations over the past 2 years in this room, we've had to adapt. We've had to be responsive to the ever-changing needs of the citizens of Calgary. Key to this change back in 2020 was the recognition of the lack of pre-seed and seed stage capital in Calgary-based businesses. This data was backed by a fantastic report by Alberta Enterprise Corporation that showed an increase in over 131% in number of tech companies in Calgary since 2018. However, 58.3% of those companies identified access to capital as their #1 challenge. Thanks to City Council, we were approved for an allocation of $10 million to seek partners in the community to help us solve this challenge, and was an important evolution in our history at OSIF, which now has made over 21 investments, allocated a total of $63 million in the core pillars of talent, attracting and retaining anchors and stars, ecosystem, and the last leg being funding. In addition to solving the funding gap, why was this important? First of all, it had a one-to-many approach. This model now allows us to have a broader impact on a higher number of companies versus picking winners and losers. It allows us to leverage the domain expertise and assist companies in scaling, leveraging our OSIF dollars. With the establishment of this $10 million allocation, we'll now see a minimum of matching dollars being deployed in Calgary-based businesses from external sources with the potential to have leverage over $45 million of capital to be invested in Calgary companies. And last, the return on capital. As we think about the legacy of OSIF and the ability for us to think about how we potentially make a return on our investment and recycle the capital to continue to have a long-term impact on the city, we fully expect that the investment vehicle will return capital to the city and our shareholder and allow us to think about how to effectively recycle those funds. Which brings us here today. On behalf of the OSIF board and the team, we are excited to announce our $4 million investment into Thin Air Labs Fund 1. This announcement today, as Angie mentioned, was part of a comprehensive RFP process we ran last summer that had Thin Air Labs emerge as a clear front-runner, given their track record, strong reputation with local entrepreneurs, of some of which you'll hear from today, and a clear dedication to making the city a stronger destination for startups and scale-ups. Most critical to today's announcement is James Lockery, who I can remember meeting months after he returned from Toronto at 1886 breakfast over 5 years ago now. Since that time, I haven't met a person more committed and passionate about the Calgary technology community than James. He wears Calgary Tech on his sleeves and has assembled an amazing team here at Thin Air Labs who are deeply rooted and committed to genuinely helping companies grow. Track record is everything, and James and his team at Thin Air Labs have backed some of the city's fastest growing startups like Cement, Athenian, Stellar Algro, who all credit James for their strong support, mentorship, and advising from day one. I want to sincerely thank James, Rick, and the entire team at Thin Air Labs for their continued dedication to the City of Calgary, for your passion and commitment to bringing local partners, and for your patience and grit in working with us to get here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mark. I would now like to call on James Lockery, Managing Partner at Thin Air Labs, to say a few words.
Hello, everybody, and thank you all for joining us here at Thin Air Labs. This is a very special place for me and for our team here. This is where magic happens every day, and I'm really glad that people could come here in person to join us and celebrate what this really means to the City of Calgary. I'd also like to thank Mayor Gondek for joining us to share this important information that's going to help spur the growth of our city in different directions than we traditionally have done in the past. And I'd also like to thank Mark and the team at OSIF for grinding it out with us as well, and the kind words that you just bestowed upon our team. It means a lot to hear those coming from such an important voice in our community. Thank you, Mark. So Thin Air Labs was created to ignite venture growth, and venture growth that is based right here in Calgary. But importantly, that venture growth has an outcome of global human impact. That's the thing that drives us here every day, is to impact people with the work that we do. And today, with this new announcement, it creates an opportunity for more of the founders, more of the entrepreneurs, and the businesses that we support in this city to be able to create that global impact and benefit our city at the same time. This announcement by OSIF also marks the first close of our fund, Thin Air Fund 1. And that's a fund that we're going to continue raising up to $100 million, which we hope to close by the end of this year. So we are still currently actively attracting capital into this city to continue this journey. And the OSIF announcement and the $4 million that are being put into it is a great step of momentum in that direction. So again, another thanks to the OSIF team for getting us to this point, because it helps what comes next, and that's multiplying that capital exponentially. And that's what we hope to achieve with this announcement. I'd also like to thank all of the other investors who have participated almost exclusively from the City of Calgary to support what we're doing here. That is a meaningful thing and a meaningful change from what's happened in the past in investment in this city, where it was rare to see the citizens of the city focus on ventures that are in the innovation space, and now they're excited to do so. It marks a massive change in mindset for the important capital that looks towards growth and focuses on our city's growth. And we're just getting started here. Our goal is to raise that $100 million by the end of the year, and we are actively pursuing that goal. That investment thesis that we use to drive the results that we have are focused on three really critical aspects of what we do. The first one is our founders. Our founders are uniquely positioned to drive innovation and global human impact like nobody else. Nobody can take an idea, create something out of it, build a team, and that's primarily driven by passion. And you're going to be hearing from some of our entrepreneurs later, and I'm really excited by that. Our goal is to partner with those people to help them be successful. That is what we do at Thin Air Labs. Our success and the success of all the people that are around it are driven through those founders. And our passion for just being a part of that journey is at front and center of everything that we do. We also invest in very early stage companies where the risk is the highest, and the support required for them to be successful is incredibly necessary. Our expertise and experience, partnered with their passion, allows for these things to become successful at a scale that we didn't even expect to see, but are now seeing in this city. And we believe in positive human impact, not just creating technology for technology's sake, but creating technology to help people. And you're going to be hearing a little bit more about that from our founders as we move forward. One of the important things about partnering with our founders for human impact is about making money. This investment by OSIF is designed to return capital to the city, to continue recycling, to invest into our city over time. And we believe that by investing in things that create human impact, we have a better chance of returning capital at exponential rates. It actually makes sense. When you focus on impact, you get returns as well. And that is a super important part of how we want to build our companies and build the city that we have in front of us. And we want to do it from right here in Calgary. Most importantly, this is where the opportunity for the future is in Canada, is right here in this city. And why is that? It's because of Calgary entrepreneurs. Calgary entrepreneurs solve big problems. They always have, whether it's been in agriculture or energy. Now it's expanding into innovation. And they build things that matter. They also build some of the largest companies in Calgary, and we've seen that multiple times, not just in the traditional industries, but now in the innovation space as well. And Calgary always, always punches above its weight, and it's not going to be any different in this area either. We are going to see some of the biggest investments and returns and companies built right here by our citizens, our peers, and we want to be part of that journey with them. Calgary has the people. It's the people that make it happen. So the city has already produced several unicorns, and we're going to hear from two ventures that are on that pathway today that we've invested in the past. And I want to talk to you about a third one called Cyantra. It's an example of a company that is very close to my heart in the way that we invest. Cyantra is a cancer detection company that uses precision healthcare to focus on their first product is in the breast cancer space. Talk about meaningful impact to human beings, to families, to the people that are personally affected by it. It's incredible. And creating this type of impact is a team sport. I'd like to first thank our capital team, starting with Raghu Bharat, who has joined us from Montreal to help us build this city with his expertise and experience that he's had in our industry. From Rick Bird, who's joined us from Toronto, who has helped a number of ventures across this country become significant. And Crystal Phillips, a Albertan who is well known around these parts for her work in philanthropy, but is now leading the experience of investors and entrepreneurs through the journey of Thin Air Labs. And thanks to the rest of the team of Unlike Minds that we have here in Thin Air Labs, who on a day-to-day basis get in the trenches and help our entrepreneurs go through the challenges that they face every single day in building their companies. I just want to say thank you to all of you for joining us on this journey. I love you all. You're amazing people. Thank you for being here with us. And it's also important to thank the local ecosystem, which is growing like crazy today, not just independently, but with the support of organizations like OSIF. Whether it's academia, independent individuals, family offices, founders, or research institutes, the ecosystem as a whole is moving forward very rapidly. And I'd just like to support them for joining us in what we do and allowing us to partner with them through this journey as well. And we're honored to be part of this community that is producing globally competitive companies, creating more jobs, more wealth, more meaningful global impact than we have ever seen before out of Calgary. Today, it's time to be bold. Today, it's time to build. And let's go out there and build what's next together.
Thank you so much, James. And thank you so much. We love the bold outlook for this city. The next person I would like to introduce is someone that requires absolutely no introduction, Mayor Gondak, who is also a member of the OSIF Board of Directors, to say a few words.
going to be really hard to follow that up, but thank you for the introduction. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you this morning for another exciting announcement for our city. I want to thank my colleague, Councillor Sonia Sharp, for being here as well. She's a big proponent of the business community in our city. It's good to see you bright and early. This past year, I have witnessed firsthand the growth of our tech sector during one of the most tumultuous times in our history, and I'm incredibly excited to see our city truly become a hub of innovation. The recent success of this sector is putting Calgary on the map as a top destination for tech entrepreneurs to turn their ideas into leading-edge businesses. As we see entrepreneurs take off and look to scale up, it requires capital investment to succeed, and that's where the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund comes in. Today's announcement is all about investing in local founders. Statistics demonstrate that when you support the inherent entrepreneurial drive of local founders, all of us win as Calgarians. On behalf of City Council, I want to take this moment to recognize the work that's being done by OSIF to select and make catalytic investments that are driving economic development in our city. These investments are instrumental in achieving our goal of creating more than 1,000 new tech companies in our city over the next decade. Specifically, OSIF is addressing a known investment gap and increasing the amount of seed capital to promising early-stage companies. Today, I want to congratulate James Lockery and the entire Thin Air Labs team on becoming the 21st organization to receive funding through OSIF. And I'm totally going to go off script for a minute. James, how exciting is it for us to be in a city where someone like you with so much brain power also has such a big heart? For you to say that you love your team, that's amazing. That's the kind of human element we need to the investments that we're making. Thank you for being a part of this city. Thank you for being part of its success. You and your whole team are doing amazing things. This $4 million investment in Thin Air Labs Fund 1 will help to create startups in diverse, high-growth sectors of our economy, and it's expected to generate at least $8 million worth of investments in Calgary-based companies. When Mark Blackwell became the chair of OSIF 3 years ago, his vision, as he mentioned to us all, was to unlock more local capital more quickly by supporting third-party fund managers. He also championed local and global business accelerators to help grow promising Calgary-based companies. Mark's term as chair is set to end a little bit later this month, and he's successfully delivered on an amazing vision. Thank you, Mark, for everything you've done as well. You are truly an amazing Calgarian. Congratulations to the Thin Air Labs team. This is great news for our city, and it's absolutely been an honor to be part of today's announcement. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Mayor Gondek, for those inspiring words. Unfortunately, the mayor does need to head back to City Council. She does have another event, but we wanted to thank you again so much for joining us this morning. We will now hear from a Calgary businesswoman, someone who's no stranger to the local startup community, no stranger to the life sciences and medtech space. Someone who understands the importance of a local investment community. Dr. Brienne Everett, CEO and co-founder of Orpix Medical Technologies.
Thank you. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. This is an area that's really near and dear to my heart, and it's really an honor to be here. Before I talk a little bit more about my experience with Thin Air Labs, I want to just give a bit of a benchmark as to what Orpix is and what we do. So we're a company that's focused on the development of imperceptible in-shoe technologies to prevent amputation in people living with diabetes. In the last couple of years, since the point in time that Thin Air Labs invested in our company, we've gone from a team of 14 to a team of 120. So there's been a lot of growth in that period of time, and we've had to navigate a lot of different challenges, including not the least of which is a global pandemic. So it's been an interesting space to navigate, but we've really felt like we've had a partner throughout the course of that. The other thing I really want to talk about is how Orpix really is a Calgary company. In the funding that's come into our company to date, 99% of that has been Alberta-based, and the majority of that has been from individuals and investors in Calgary. So to get to where we are with the support of our local ecosystem has been absolutely critical, and Thin Air Labs has played a really major role in that. When Thin Air Labs invests in companies, they don't simply become an investor, they really become a partner. They're committing to a partnership with those companies, and that's a very big difference. There are a range of different potential investors, and having a group that's supporting you and really becomes part of your team is exceptionally unique, I would say, and something that adds a huge level of differentiation to the relationship. So that partnership is active, it's dynamic, it's ongoing, and it's in many ways parallels the process of starting, initiating, growing a company. It changes, it moves. So the process of creating a startup can be circuitous, it can be messy, it can be unpredictable, it's imperfect. And the thing about having Thin Air Labs, a group of former operators at the table, is that they understand that and they're not expecting perfection. The bar is really high and it stays high, and the pursuit of excellence is always there in all of the conversations. It's never ending, but the process changes. And so when Thin Air Labs invests in a team, they're investing in the knowledge that they can trust that team to pathfind and execute. They ultimately are investing in teams that they know they can trust. And when an entrepreneur takes investment from an investor, they are also allowing that investment to come in knowing that they can trust that investor as a partner. So it's very important that that trust exists on both sides, and it very much has with the Thin Air team. Thin Air prioritizes diversity, equity, and inclusion in tech, and they really put their money where their mouth is. They know that representation matters in seeing all sides of a problem, and they prioritize Calgary and the growth of Calgary, and that has been really important to the work that we've done together. They know that strong teams persist and they stay laser focused, and they ultimately will find the path. They don't know the path from the start. And so with Thin Air Labs there to support and help to identify more direct paths so that we're not all making the same mistakes twice is really key. So the partnership developed with Thin Air Labs and James Lockery have been really vital to my ongoing development as a CEO. I know that it has already had a meaningful, tangible impact on how I lead, on how I execute, and in the evolution of our company and our products. The Impact Advisory Services team has also played a very critical role in that through Thin Air. Their support has been critical in keeping Orpix on the leading edge of sensory-enabled healthcare. So for that, I really want to send a big thank you to the Thin Air team. I'm very proud to be part of the Thin Air family. The support from OSIF really couldn't be going to a stronger supporter in the ecosystem. And with this additional funding, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Thin Air is going to do next, and to continue to work with the team on growing more success within Alberta. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brienne. And thank you for those words. It really solidifies our position to going down this path of making an investment in a fund manager, and in particular, an investment in Thin Air Labs. We would now like to hear from another CEO, someone who is also familiar in the local startup community and very familiar with Thin Air Labs, Alex Todorovich, the co-founder and CEO of Arbor.
Thank you. Guess I'm closing the show, clearly saving the best for last. Just kidding, everyone's probably like, who is this guy? I don't even know who he is. So what can I say about Thin Air? I don't know. I met James about 2 years ago. I fired him a random email and I was like, look, you're the guy that I want to learn from. I'm not even asking you for money. I just want your help in terms of like, how do I do this? It was a team of 4 of us. We're working in a basement, just grinding away on coffee, and we thought we had a good idea. I wanted to just kind of learn from the best of the best, and James was the best that I could find. And he replied pretty much instantly. Most people told me like, good luck, like, you know, like James is very hard to get a hold of, like he's a super busy guy. he remembered who I was because we met briefly a while before that, and we set up a call. We were talking through some stuff, and he was like, you know what? Sounds like a really interesting idea. The key thing that stuck out to me was like, he was like, I don't know if this is going to be it, you know, what you guys are building right now, but I really like your team, and I want to basically invest in your team. And that's the key to early stage startups. Like, it's not, you're not going to get it right immediately. We haven't gotten it right immediately, like no one has, kind of thing. We had to pivot a couple times to get to that right point. But he saw in us like the tenacity, the drive, the adaptability, and it's a completely different experience with Thin Air because I've met a lot of VC firms and stuff like that. Like, yeah, they'll give you capital, they give you support and all that stuff like that, but like our office is literally across the, I was gonna say road, but hall. And like I've basically become family with everyone that works here. Like everyone knows each other. If I need something, like I can straight up call James at like 3 in the morning. He'd probably get pretty mad, but like he would most likely answer. And then yeah, like they're just there. They lean in very heavily. They help us all through everything. Like our company is barely a year old, and we've been able to raise almost $3 million basically because of the fact that we have the support of knowing what to do, when to do it, kind of thing. What are the pitfalls? What are the things that we should look out for? And James was speaking about impact. So our company is about essentially being able to calculate the environmental impact of consumer goods. So what we do is we trace across the supply chain of like, where did this thing come from, whether it be apparel, automotive, food, footwear, you name it kind of thing. How was it assembled? Where was it manufactured? What was the power sources that went into that? And there's a big chain of calculations that happens to give a pretty accurate estimation of like the CO2 impact, the water footprint, the waste footprint as well. So to give you an example of the impact, so a regular t-shirt, right, over its life cycle emits about 15 kilograms of CO2. So everyone's like, I don't know what that is, right? That's close to 8,000 balloons of hot air, like party balloons. I don't think we could fit that many in this room, right? So like everyone's wearing t-shirts, you know, they're being made constantly. Just imagine that kind of level of CO2 impact nonstop. So what we do is basically help companies understand the impact of their products, provide them that data for the benchmark, and then help them choose better products to sell to their consumers. And I mean, right away, James is like, you know, this is a huge, huge problem. Like we've been able to start working with the UN. We've been working with Harvard. We have access to the best researchers and best data possible you can get on the planet, kind of thing. And you know, through our because we can basically measure these things. That's the whole point. Because you know, brands nowadays and like all these companies and stuff like that, like everyone has really lofty environmental goals. But when it comes to asking like, what are you doing? What's the month-over-month change? There's really not a whole lot of metric systems. And so we're really like working on a global scale to be able to make these changes happen and help the consumption cycle be less of a burden on the planet. And it's not just through you know, buying or planting a tree here and there or whatever it is. Like you need to stop at the source kind of thing, and that's what we focus on. Yeah, I myself and the team, like we've grown from 4 to 20. We're extremely grateful for the opportunity that Thin Air has given us, and I just can't say enough good things about this place. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. I think we did save the best for last. Just one note I wanted to make. After the announcement of NEO this year, I think the community is all very excited and anxious for more unicorns out of this city. So I'm just saying to James and his team. So this concludes the formal part of the announcement. We would now like to take time for questions from media. If you have any questions, if I could please ask you to state your name, the name of the organization, and who you're directing the question to.
Mike Soddington, CDC, Mr. Blackwell.
Go ahead.
What was the criteria you used, and what are the benchmarks you're going to use to watch the growth of Thin Air?
So yeah, as Angie mentioned before, just over a year ago, we launched a comprehensive RFP process that went nationwide to attract fund managers like Thin Air to apply. And there was a very rigorous set of criteria associated with the ultimate decision-making process. Most critical to that was investment track record. So investment managers that had a track record of investing in Calgary-based businesses, investment track record of organizations that had supported and grown companies, and that had a commitment and already had deployed capital in Calgary. And so with Thin Air as an example, James, as an angel investor and through Thin Air, had made a number of investments in the local ecosystem. Had, as you heard from today, as part of the reference calls with CEOs, you know, the NPS score, the Net Promoter Score of Thin Air Labs and other funds that we had invested in was extremely strong. And so as we made the investment in Thin Air, we also made an investment in Accelerate Fund 3, which is a local-based fund. We made a $6 million investment 6 months ago now. And so those were part of the key decision criteria: track record of investing in companies, a commitment to the Calgary ecosystem, you know, references into companies to help them scale. Yeah.
What kind of benchmarks are you looking for from Thin Air going forward here in the next 6 months, year? What kind of timeline are you seeing for any kind of success for the city of Calgary?
So I think the biggest part of that is leverage dollars and matching. And so we would expect, as part of a $4 million investment in Thin Air, that we'd see at least 2x leverage. And that's a very important part. You know, Thin Air is one node in the ecosystem, but the track record of what James and the team have been able to do is bring outside capital into Calgary. And that was an important part. So leverage dollars investing in Calgary-based companies. And then this is a bit of a different shift for OSIF. So we're actually looking at a return on capital. And so, you know, they've obviously demonstrated they're able to have great selection criteria and picking fantastic companies like we've heard about today. And so we would expect, you know, through the Thin Air investment that we'll see at least $8 million deployed in Calgary-based businesses. But I would expect that to be actually exponentially higher. James says and the team have the ambition to raise a $100 million fund. So we can expect that, you know, by the end of the year and the time that they raise the capital, that those dollars will be leveraged significantly into Calgary-based exclusive businesses.
When you talk about the startup world, of course, the failure rate is quite high. What kind of fears do you have do you have any fears of failure rates in startups, and where are you with that?
I mean, I think individuals like James and in the venture world have to embrace failure. I think that that's part of the game. And this is my day job. I'm a venture capitalist. It's a distribution game. And I think James clearly has a track record of investing in strong winners. As I mentioned, his early investments in Stellar Algo, Cymend, those are companies that are starting to see significant scale and early successes of Soonicorns, I call them, the two individuals that spoke today. And I think that pattern recognition is a very key part of identifying managers like James. But that's what we have to embrace. We have to be able to embrace failure as part of the venture business. And that's what we're signing up to make sure we have that support. And early stage capital, it's absolutely required to support companies in those early days.
Perfect. Thanks so much. James, could I speak to James, please?
You want to put me on the hot seat?
Oh, it's not much of a hot seat. Look at me. Mike Simonton, CBC News. Listen, one of the things you talked about is fun, and I'm going to call it, the word I'm going to use is idea makers. How do you think you're going to cast your net? Like, when I think of Calgary, I think of very siloed industries, siloed groups, not communicating well between each other. How do you believe you're going to cast your net wide enough to get the kind of entrepreneurs that can really move forward? Further to that, data is the new world. And so a lot of companies are exploring the data world, and that's exactly what that cat's mining. And anyone with a brain can see how the vast growth of that, but extremely risky and a lot of players too. So tell me how you're going to cast your net wide and deal with that kind of a risk.
Yeah, the Calgary ecosystem has been shifting dramatically over the 7 years since I've returned back to the city. And it's been playing out through a bunch of different verticals that are now starting to overlap. And what I like about what I see in it is there are groups like Thin Air Labs that are building out their own type of silo, for lack of a better word. But those silos are integrating with the universities. They're integrating with policymakers. They're integrating with research institutes. And where we play in the entire industry is really early stage. So we're looking for those types of people that are in the early stages of building that business. They may not even have a business incorporated at that point. And so we go to the source. we get our fingernails dirty. We don't just wait for them to come to us. We go to the universities. We go into the research institutes. We go to the events. We talk to the community. We get referrals in from other people because we've been talking about where we invest. So our net is pretty wide and cast pretty broadly today. And that's years of hard work to be able to do that while the shift was also occurring at the same time. So I feel very comfortable with the team that we have here and the way that we integrate with the community. And I think that's a big part of it, is we think about it as a community. We don't think about ourselves as it's just a group of people that are doing something. We think of ourselves as part of a community, and that's why this space exists today and at the scale it does, is so that founders can be in here, other investors can be in here, people from out of town, some of our investors hang out here just to learn and see what's going on. So it's really a process of waking up every day and wanting to hang out with founders. And that's what our team does. It's just, we love those people. So we find them. And now it's gotten to a point where they are starting to find us. And we interact with hundreds of businesses every month that are from the region. So that gives you a sense of the scale that we're starting to get to.
And so in the world of data, where we see this massive competition globally, how do you feel about that? And I'm getting a sense that there's a lot of investment in that world, and because it's such a vast.
Yeah, we use software to track a whole bunch of things that we engage with, but that's just, I think that's a second nature for myself and my team, that we think about it from the standpoint of just building businesses, and that's just part of it. When I was building my business back in Toronto, we looked around at data. Data was the thing that we grew off of, so it's just a second nature thing. I don't even really pay that much of conscious attention to it. We just get up and do it.
That's all I have. Thanks so much.
No problem.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. I think that's all the time we have for questions. Again, I wanted to thank all of our guest speakers for joining us today. Thank you so much, Mark, Mayor Gondak, Brienne, Alex, and most of all, James and your team. Thank you so much for joining and for sharing your insightful words. That concludes our event. Again, thanks for joining. Have a wonderful day.